The Audible is back in action. I am joined by my guys, Donnie Rightside and the Whale Capper. We are breaking down each and every division in the NFL. And today is the NFC South, a very intriguing division. I'm so excited to break this down because I am extremely high on the Atlanta Falcons. I will be trying to pronounce that team's name appropriately all year. I know it's not Falcons, and I know that they don't get changed in dressing rooms. I know that they get changed in locker rooms. You guys have filled me in all that information. I'm very high on the Falcons. The Saints are going to be very tough, but I'm high on the Falcons. Donnie Rightside, the NFC South.
NFC South has it all here. I mean, you have some really talented offenses on the top level that you're talking about with the Falcons and also the Saints. But also, let's not forget, the Bucs, even though they're going through a changing of guard there, still put up some really good offensive statistics. You have the Carolina Panthers. We'll see how that quarterback comes into play, if that shoulder's up for grabs. And as I said before, there's a couple interesting scheduling quirks in here that may be able to help a couple teams and hurt some others here. NFC South, it's going to be competitive.
Competitive. I see this as an extremely talented division here, Whale Capper, the NFC South.
Oh, it's going to be so fun. This one's going to be a ton of fun. And if anything kind of really paints the picture of this division and how you want to play it, from a futures standpoint, in my opinion, it comes down to market entry when you buy into certain teams during the course of this season, because, there's definitely a good amount of kind of front-loaded, back-loaded competition here. It's not all these schedules are not created equal, and I think actually that's kind of a good normalizing factor across the favorite and some of the challengers here.
Well, let's get to work with the NFC South. We are going to start with the New Orleans Saints. Now, the NFC South to win the Super Bowl is at plus 550, and I find that very intriguing as well. Saints wins team total at 10.5. Juice to the under. Division minus 180. Conference plus 400. Super Bowl plus 800. Team total sacks. Most team total sacks plus 900. Finished with the best record plus 800. Drew Brees, most passing TDs plus 1,200. Is Drew Brees going to play like a 40-year-old Tom Brady or a 40-year-old Peyton Manning? Is this his last year? Michael Thomas is a beast. Does Ted Ginn still have it at 34 years old? Latavius Murray comes in to back up Kamara. Last year's number 14 pick, Marcus Davenport, was slowed by that toe injury all year. How good can he be? Then you have Sheldon Rankins, who tore his Achilles in the divisional round win over the Eagles. Could be sidelined for up to 10 months. He may not be ready to the latter half of 2019. Can Marshawn Lattimore be better than he was in 2018? Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2017. I'm not as high on the Saints as a lot of others, and I think this division is up for grabs. Donnie Rightside, the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Saints still in that top shelf, number one in the NFC South. And the reason being is they have a lot of things going right. Continuity there has been there a long time. Sean Payton's a great head coach. You're looking at their defense finally coming on strong. They have the components that you like, Jimmy, on defense, which we used to knock them all the time. It wasn't so far as well. After the last two seasons, 7 wins, and then kicked it up to 11 and 13. But the one thing, as I said, I do like, you still have Drew Brees there. And you're right. Sooner or later, Father Time is just going to step in and say, you know what, enough of this. But when you play at home and you have such a distinct advantage for 8 home games, and then if you make it into the playoffs, you know how you knock the Saints out? You need a ridiculous call to go against them in order for them to get knocked out and not make the Super Bowl. Because if we probably could roll reverse here, that call gets made, the Saints move on, we're probably talking about them as the Super Bowl champion. So I do think there's some nice odds there on 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. But for value on the NFC South, minus 170, minus 160 in order for a division winner, there's a lot of things that are going to go against the Saints this year. If we take a look and say, you know what, take away the talent. We know their offense is good. We know their defense should be able to get to the quarterback, and it's improving there. But when you get a first-place defense, unlike the NBA, or first-place schedule, it's going to bite you. They're talking about road games on the road out of division, Jimmy, at the Rams, at the Seahawks, at the Bears. First 4 teams out of the gate, all playoff teams. So I like when Whale Capper talks about, getting that marketability. Maybe you see some value. If the Saints go 2-2 in those first 4 games, and maybe the schedule eases up a little bit, that could help. But it's not going to help them after those first 4 games. And let's also take a look here. Huge loss, Max Unger retiring, and you get a new center in there. When you have the quarterback of the offense being Drew Brees, the quarterback of the offensive line, that changes. That might throw an interesting dynamic. But I like the Saints overall. I still think they're the top dog here in this division.
They're a dangerous squad, and hearing how high you guys are on them will lead me towards possibly taking the NFC South to win the Super Bowl at plus 550. Whale Capper, the New Orleans Saints.
I'm not actually kind of buying them as a true Super Bowl contender here, I think, and I agree with kind of all the points Donnie made. And sure enough, over the last couple seasons, they've been more or less in the mold of Patriots NFC. You know, they got the older quarterback. They've got pieces all around him who are talented. They're developing players well on defense and the offensive line. 2 years ago, their draft was absolutely spectacular. They hit great, home runs on almost all of their top tier picks in that draft. And those guys are entering their third year, and they should be legitimate contributors to a good, talented NFL team. Problem is, Drew Brees will play. He won't play like a 40-year-old Peyton Manning. He won't play like a 40-year-old Tom Brady. He'll play like a 40-year-old Drew Brees. And what we've seen is Sean Payton has had an extra load on his shoulders to manage Drew Brees's passing attempt distribution across the season, where he doesn't want to burn him out early. He wants to keep his arm fresh for later in the season. And only when kind of the going gets tough does he really rely on him in the passing game, in regular season, matchups. And it's going to be interesting to watch what his approach is for how he keeps Drew Brees' arm fresh, because Drew Brees' arm has gotten tired now 2 years in a row. And, we said, you look back at their last two seasons, they absolutely could have won the Super Bowl last year. They absolutely could have won it the year before. They were the Minneapolis Miracle away from the NFC title game. They were a correct pass interference call away from the Super Bowl last year. Like they have been knocking on the door, and you would think that they are right there for the taking. The problem is their schedule this year out of the gate is extremely tough. Their schedule overall is tough. Donnie nailed it. He said 2-2 could be the first 4 games. Well, the problem is this team likes to warm up into the regular season. They don't come out give you their best and their hottest shot out of the gate. It takes them a couple weeks to kind of warm into what's working for them before they really are dynamic on offense. That if they have that approach this year, we could be talking about 0-4 out of the gate. Like, this looks tough. We remember last year they had 8-point favorites week 1 against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They put up a stinker. If they put up a stinker against the Texans in week 1 this year, I think they're staring at 0-4. So it's that would be the right time to buy on them to come back and pull off a miracle comeback to win the NFC South. But if they're not hosting home games in the playoffs, I don't think that this team really has a realistic shot, especially when you consider the likes of the Eagles potentially getting a number 1 overall pick. If you have to take Drew Brees end of January, send him to Philadelphia and play in the cold in that crowd, I don't love their chances in that spot. So I'm a little bit cool on the Saints being an actual title contender.
Interesting stuff. I'm a little bit cool as well because I'm so high on our next team. The Atlanta Falcons wins 8.5, juice to the over. Division plus 375, conference plus 1,600, Super Bowl plus 3,300. That's value to me. Matt Ryan, most passing TDs, plus 900. Most passing yards, plus 400. Julio Jones, most receiving TDs, plus 1,600. Most receiving yards, plus 400. Devonta Freeman, comeback player of the year, plus 800. 2018 NFC offensive ranking, 3rd. Should be even better this year. 2018 4th in NFL in passing yards. Should be even better this year. Weapons: Austin Hooper at tight end, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, Devonta Freeman at running back. They used their 2 first-round picks on the offensive line, drafting Boston College Chris Lindstrom at 14th overall and Husky Caleb McGarry at 31st overall. They were decimated with injuries defensively last year. Dan Quinn can make an average defense good. I believe in Dan Quinn. Vic Beasley, McKinley getting after the quarterback. Can Ricardo Allen, Keanu Neal come back? They've been rehabbing together. Neal was a Pro Bowler in 2017. He last 37 snaps. They have an athletic linebacking core. Donnie Rightside, I'm really high on these Falcons. Can you bring me back? Should you bring me back?
Yeah, look, I'm still going to stick with, I think New Orleans still is the top dog, but you're looking at some interesting stuff. And we always talk about when you're buying low, and selling high at this point. The low point last year came in that long losing streak for Atlanta. But can you blame the team for what they were going through? How many games did you see the offense rolling? Oh, no, Julio Jones is nicked up. Oh, my goodness, Cal Ridley is lighting it up. He's out for the second half. The offensive linemen couldn't stay healthy enough for Matt Ryan to stay upright. So they go out in the draft. They get 2 first-round picks, spend them both on the offensive line. Coming into the season, you're right, looks like they're going to be healthier. But the defense was 28th overall last year. But a huge part of that was due to injuries. When you just keep losing losing, guys, it doesn't get better as the season goes on. When you're damaging, you're getting your attrition in weeks 2, 3, and 4 and already losing starters. It only gets worse as it goes down the stretch. Now, the interesting point about this, you're taking a look at some odds here. 30-1 to win the Super Bowl, 14-1 to win the NFC. You get a little bit of nice value at the plus 275. Now, we can also put, let's see, the talent. We know the talent is there for Atlanta. We know the coaching staff is veteran. Matt Ryan's waiting to break through. But here's an interesting schedule quirk, which I like, because when we're taking a look at teams like the New Orleans Saints, and it's so important to get home field advantage, but if you look at Atlanta's schedule on the season, they only play 3 games outside? Are you kidding me? And we're not talking about going to Chicago. We're not talking about going to Seattle like some other teams in the division are going to have to do. We're talking about playing Tampa Bay on the road, San Francisco on the road, Carolina on the road. The rest at home on fast surfaces, which they're built for. You take a look at last year. Could the season have gone any worse, Jimmy? They got 7 wins. You're going to line me up with an 8.5 this year with a healthy team coming in and say, you know what, guys? You don't have to play in Green Bay when it's cold. You don't have to play in Chicago when it's windy. Every team you play, which is only 3 games outside, they're going to be able to play basketball indoors. I like this Atlanta Falcons team. No doubt in my mind, they're scheduled for 9 or more wins this year. So if you can still get that 8.5, which is juiced at minus 121 from what I'm taking a look at, I think that's a valid shot. And very rarely, usually we talk about the schedules going after you and going against you, which we'll talk about another team in the division just a little bit. Atlanta's schedule is sensational for just the optics of it.
I believe in this squad. Great breakdown. Whale Capper, I am very high on these Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. Okay. So first and foremost, strong agreement with both of you guys here. I think that, Donnie brought up a point of buy low. So if you buy the Falcons now, you're buying low on this team that has an absolute elite quarterback for the NFL right now, has spectacular weapons in the passing game, has just gotten rid of maybe the one piece that was holding them back on offense in their poor offensive coordinator last year in Steve Sarkisian. They've brought in a guy who has got a nice offensive mind. I don't know if I totally buy him yet. I need to see it to believe it, that he's going to be an elite play caller in this league, but they're bringing in former head coach from Tampa, Dirk Cutter, to be the offensive coordinator this year. That, to me, reads as an upgrade, but we got to see it. Okay, so all told, the offense should be absolutely on, very, very, very challenging the team to stop. This has every read of last year's Chiefs in terms of their ability to score points, and people definitely are kind of low on the defense because you look at the numbers from last year and it was an absolute dumpster fire. Now, the entire reason that it was a dumpster fire is they didn't have Keanu Neal and they didn't have Deion Jones for almost the entire season. Those are 2 enormously important pieces for this defense. Those 2 pieces make the entire ability to stop the pass. That is the whole ball game right there. So just having those guys back, if they get full season health from those 2 players, they're going to be much more difficult to beat. They're going to be much more difficult to outscore. Really, you beat the Falcons last year by outscoring them, which ended up not being that hard, which is why they didn't have enough wins to go to the playoffs. But all this goes to say, if you're watching this now, at the end of July, you still have an opportunity to get on board with these prices for the Falcons for the South and for the Super Bowl at levels where there is legitimate value on these numbers. Like, they are going to be in the race. Look at their schedule. Donnie nailed it on the schedule. They only have 3 outdoor games. Those games aren't until the end of the season. The first freaking 11 weeks of the season, they're playing in a dome with a team that is built for that. This sets up perfectly to get on board early, watch these guys put up 7-2 kind of a record over the first 9 weeks of the season, and then you can decide what to do from there, how you want to balance your exposure.
Yeah, I absolutely love those 2 breakdowns. Makes me feel very, very good about where I'm leaning and where I'm moving. Great breakdowns. Let's move on to the Carolina Panthers, a team that befuddles me year after year. I never know if they're going to the NFC final or winning 4 or 5 games. To win 7.5, slightly juiced to the over. Division plus 550, conference plus 2,500, Super Bowl plus 5,000. Tough schedule in a tough division. They have an improved defense. Cam has supposedly changed up his throwing mechanics. McCaffrey's coming back bigger. Will he maintain his quickness? He was in 99% of snaps last year. Greg Olsen turns 34, coming off a broken foot. How much can you lean on him? Are DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Jarius Wright good enough? 4-3 base defense forever. Now they say, Rivera says they're going to be using 3-man fronts. Julius Peppers retires. Wes Horton signs with the rival Saints. And they signed Bruce Irvin, who I don't think will be enough. They need more from Dontari Poe. Kawan Short, very excited about the three-man front. We know Kuechly's one hit away from retirement. Bradbury, Gaulden, and Reed in the secondary is not enough. Their secondary is weak, in my estimation. Donnie, right side, the Carolina Panthers.
This is, you know what, it's funny because we usually have likes and dislikes as soon as we go over ball clubs. Like, I can't wait to get after this team. And when I take a look at the Carolina Panthers, how many times already in this offseason I've gone, you know what, they're going to have a really good season. Then I backtrack and say, boy, I watch a lot of football for the Carolina Panthers, what they can actually do, because it starts with the quarterback. The most important position of all of sports is the quarterback. And how many times us as gamblers, and I've been included in this, where I take the Carolina Panthers and after 5 minutes I go, I got bad Cam today. I'm in trouble. He's already checked out of this ball game, except in case something miraculous comes back. Now, if we want to take a look and say, you know, what happened in the past can happen in the future, we all took a look at Indianapolis, and I was chuckling going, I think they're going to have a good season. This guy's throwing a Nerf football in July, meaning Andrew Luck. How's he going to throw a football and try to keep up when it comes in the fall? Amazing recovery. So now we're hearing the same things out of Carolina, which coincides last year. Let's not forget, this was a 6-2 ball club before Cam Newton couldn't throw the ball 15 yards or even complete a 5-yard out midway through the season. They kept it real hush-hush. You saw the Ron Rivera interviews, absolutely indignant that people were asking him if something is wrong with Cam Newton's arm. It was clear as apparent by the end of the season they shut him down. And now you're hearing all the good things come through again. He got his rehab done. He had a couple surgeries. He changed his throwing motion. How many times do we see Tim Tebow news come out? Boy, he worked really hard in the offseason, changed his throwing motion. He's going to revert right back to what he did, 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. But can that shoulder keep up? If it does, I think they have some components where you can get after it. Love the running back position. They have a lot of Swiss Army blades out on the outside, Swiss Army knives, that can do interchangeable things. They can go deep. They can catch the short game. They can use the screen game. They have an unbelievable dynamic running back that fits all in there. I like the moves they made on the defensive line. Getting McCoy out of Tampa Bay, there's a lot of meat in the middle that should be able to slow down. And you're right, Jimmy, protect Luke Kuechly. He is one injury away, one concussion away from sitting out. I think they protected him well. But this is one of those teams heading in where you see the team total 7.5 and you say, boy, it could go either way. To be honest with you, I love to give my opinions on teams and say, you know what, I think this team's moving up. If there's so many questions at the quarterback, which Cam Newton we're going to get, Jimmy, I don't have a distinct advantage in saying, you know what, I like this to go over 7.5 or stay under. This is one of those teams where I like to sit back and watch and say, you know what, after a couple weeks, I really want to see what they have. I'm not extremely high on the Carolina Panthers this year.
Nor am I, and Cam Newton is the question mark that you speak of. Whale Capper, Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, so the Panthers are a team for me that has a mediocre ceiling and a low floor. Like, this could go fine or it could go very poorly. And we talked about the Panthers last year at the IFBC. Gabe put me on the spot on the stage on a win total that miraculously hit the under thanks to that injury. But I was predicated that entire take on, if you're telling me Norv Turner's 7-step drop back offense with Cam Newton and those pieces at offensive line, you're telling me Cam Newton was going to survive through 16 games. I just was not buying it. And sure enough, that was the specific thread that unraveled their entire season. And did they make some investments in the offensive line this season? Yes. They got a center out of Denver and Matt Paradis, who is a phenomenal piece at offensive line. He could completely turn that unit around by anchoring the middle of things, and that could be the entire difference. But I have an enormous question mark in my head about how effective Cam Newton is going to be. The injury was much more significant than, it looked like what we saw with Andrew Luck, not the year that he came back, the year before he took an entire year off. So the idea that he's going to have rehab and be himself in year one recovering from this injury is really tough for me to buy. Now, if he does, this is probably a 9-win team. And I say they're ceiling mediocre, about 9 wins probably, because they still have holes in their secondary. Yeah, they made some investments on their D-line, and their linebacker core is still, towards the top tier of the league. But they have enormous problems in terms of covering receivers. They have a dearth of skill at the outside pass catching positions on offense. So their ceiling to me just is not that high. If you're going to bet a win total on this team, I would lean under, but I certainly would not lay any juice. Look for an alternate, look for some option where you can sell some games there, because, things could get real ugly here if Cam Newton is actually hurt.
and I'm going to stay away from them. I feel they're just year in and year out a tricky team to figure out. Let's move on to the Buccaneers. Win 6.5, slightly juiced to the under. Division 850, conference plus 3,000, Super Bowl plus 6,000. Devin White, Defensive Rookie of the Year, plus 700. Bruce Arians in business over here. The no biscuit Arians. I'm an NFC West guy. I'm a fan of Bruce Arians. I think he's a good coach. Florida teams, though, may be terrible this year. Second offensive ranking in the NFC last year will not be duplicated, I don't believe. Their defense was bad last year. Have they shown any signs of improvement? I don't really think so. Jameis Winston, not to be trusted. Throwing over 4,000 yards twice. We've seen him do it, but I don't want him as my quarterback. Weapons like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones are a good 1-2 punch. Brian Leftwich comes over from the Cardinals, take over as offensive coordinator. Jason Pierre-Paul still in a neck brace following the car accident in May. Said he's going to probably be on the reserve PUP list, miss the first 6 games of the season. First-round pick Vita Vea should continue to improve. Devin White's going to be a monster. Ndamukong Suh comes over, a guy just despised by everybody who watches NFL. He was in 40% of the plays with the Rams last year, $9.25 million. Levante David, weak secondary. Vernon Hargraves, a bust. What do you make of these Buccaneers, Donnie Rightside?
Look, I think the Buccaneers are doing the right thing. I think a nice little reset there with Bruce Arians to bring in that level of continuity inside the building. I think that's about what you're going to expect this season. But wins, losses-wise, I don't think it's going to check out very well. There's a lot of things going against the Buccaneers heading into the season. Number one being your quarterback, Jameis Winston. Are we going to get some fool's gold and he's going to turn out to be a good quarterback? Then we're going to sign him 5 years, $140 million, to have it backfire again? Is this the same Jameis Winston that couldn't pull a starting quarterback job away from Ryan Fitzpatrick with all those weapons and continually gets a starting job back, then gets benched? You know, Bruce Arians going to come and he's going to shake some things up. They still have all the components on offense outside of losing Deshaun Jackson where they're going to be able to move the football and have a decent season in that respect. I like what they did on defense. You know, JPP getting hurt, that's going to hurt them. There's no question about it. I like them going to change it up. The defense was terrible. Now going to a 3-4, getting some super athletic linebackers. I love the pick in Devin White, first-round pick out of LSU to try to shore up that defense. But that's about all that's going to go well for the Buccaneers this year. They're sitting right in that realm. What are we looking at, Jimmy? Team total-wise, 6.5, and that's where they should be. Look at their 5-year run. 2 wins, 6 years. They crested 9 wins, then crashed back to 5-5. That all with the quarterback, as we like to say, who should have been your franchise and should be getting cheaply and should be winning football games and spending your money elsewhere. Now you're worried about spending and making a $150 million investment on your starting quarterback if he plays well. That's going to tear up for the future that total salary cap. But here's the problem with the Buccaneers. When we talk about, you know me, Jimmy, I love home field advantage in football. It's so hard. Forget about winning in the playoffs on the road. Winning on the road in the regular season is tough to do. You're going to tell me that Tampa Bay, Jimmy, is going to have a home game on September 22nd, and then say hello to their fans again on November the 10th? This could be the ultimate dumpster fire going all the way through, because the one thing you can buoy is to say, you know what, we have a home game. Let's get up. It's our home crowd. We slept in our home beds. They're going to be away for that long, and this isn't a good football team. It's still a young football team trying to learn. I don't know where they're going to end up at the end of the season, but if I'm looking right now at a 6.5 team total with that amount of damage being on the road, you're looking at a team, because once NFL teams see the future coming through and say, you know what, Jameis Winston isn't our guys, it's no longer about winning in that franchise. It's about tanking and getting to the finish line and getting the number 1 overall pick to select your quarterback. Give me the under 6.5. There's way too many things going against Tampa Bay this year, Jimmy.
I agree. And if I had... Maybe you've pushed me into making it a play, because free play I take under 6.5, and maybe I make it an official play after this breakdown. Whale Capper, Buccaneers.
Yeah, this one's really tough. I see some potential for them to way overachieve on 6.5. I like Bruce Arians as a coach. That's a positive. There are moments in the course of Jameis Winston's career where he has shown an ability to make impressive passes. He can do it. And then the problem is, to this point, you know, he's either making poor decisions off the field that's keeping him off the field from suspension, or he turns around and right after he makes a spectacular pass 40 yards down the field, throws a boneheaded interception. Now, you put a guy like Bruce Arians together with a quarterback who can pass. He just needs a little bit better decision making. Maybe he just needs a little bit better guidance, you know, a little bit better kind of, a well-respected opinion in his ear, kind of that could manifest as something positive. It could. And so I'm, a little hesitant to just say, full agreement here, consensus. Let's bang this under, because I could see, I don't really want to doubt Bruce Arians. We haven't seen him coach in a while. That's true. I don't think the league has really moved that much farther beyond what he was doing when he walked away from coaching the Arizona Cardinals. And in fact, a lot of what he had at the time with the Cardinals is kind of what other teams are emulating and adopting now into their approach. So his scheme, his system works for this NFL, and he's got weapons around Jameis Winston to do some damage. They have a poor defense still, in my opinion. I think they desperately needed to address the secondary, and they did not. This kind of trickles back to I don't really buy. I don't think they have a great ownership. I don't think they have a great general manager. And so kind of the fish rots from the head in that regard. And so overall, this roster does not look like a team that's going to challenge the likes of the Falcons or the Saints. They can beat the Panthers probably for sure at home, maybe on the road. They'll win a handful of other games, but I think I have them coming in right around 6 or 7 wins. So I'm going to stay away from this guy.
The NFC South. After this breakdown, and I pumped the brakes on making too many future bets after I made a couple early in our breakdowns. But I find the Falcons extremely appealing, and even more so than I did when I sat down here 30 minutes ago before we broke this down. NFC South, up for grabs. Very talented division. Donnie Rightside, NFC South, final notes.
Yep, I'm gonna stick with New Orleans. I'm gonna think they're gonna win this division here. But if you're asking me for like a best bet or what we can look forward to, I'm in agreement. Give me the over 8.5 for the Atlanta Falcons. I think overall of every single value shot, even though you can't get a future 10-1 or 5-1 on it, I think it's a great one. There's no way the Atlanta Falcons don't get 9 wins this year. Give me the over 8.5.
I like it. Whale Capper, NFC South, Week 17. We see the Saints and Falcons playing. What are your final thoughts on this division?
Thanksgiving we get them too, don't we? I can't remember exactly. I think they're playing. Those are the 2 games that decide this division, in my opinion. And I think, I think the likelihood that we see the Saints start slow is pretty high, which has me very interested in the preseason positions on the Falcons for both the NFC South and for the Super Bowl. This team is being priced like an average team in the NFL, but they're substantially better than that, in my opinion, especially because of their ability to just produce massive offense, which, for the regular season, that's what gets you wins. So give me all in on the Falcons here. Maybe one of my 2 or 3 favorite looks here as we head into the regular season. Falcons to win the South at that number.
Oh, man, does that sound so good to me? Okay. All right, we are in business. The Audible, I've just broken down the NFC South. We have the NFC West left to go, and we are month and a half before Week 1 kickoff. If you want to party with these guys, you got to meet us in Miami, August 18th to 25th, the Diplomat Beach Resort. We're going to be Week 3 of the preseason with the Dolphins, doing it up right. And if you haven't partied with these guys, you are missing out. I can't wait. On behalf of myself, Donnie Rightside, and the Whale Capper, thank you guys so much for watching. We have no show without you, the viewers, whom we love dearly. And next up, NFC West.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.